Hello and welcome to Football 301. I'm your host, Nate Tice. Very fun show for you today because that's all we do here. We only have fun shows for you here at Football 301 and Yahoo, but we're going to do a really fun one today. We're going to look at second-year quarterbacks because there are 6 of them. Really, there were 7 of them last year if we're including Spencer Rattler, but 6 in the first round that all are going to be starting in 2025. So we're going to check in on them, detail our level of optimism for each of these players, what we want to see them work on, maybe see what they, what would be a good season for them this season, expectations, manage all of that. And also, we had a little bit of news. The Olympics. The NFL is allowing their players to play in the 2028 Olympics in flag football. So at the end of the show, we're going to give our 5 players that we want to start our Olympic teams with. Just a little bit of fun there because this is May. We're talking about the NFL, year-round sport, and it truly is going to be a year-round sport. When we're talking about the Olympics, we're going to fill that summer schedule as well. But here to talk about those quarterbacks and to talk about the Olympic team, my guys, Matt Harmon. How you doing today, Matt?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I've seen a good bit of all of these second-year quarterbacks, not just preparing for this show, but a couple of these guys are tied up with rookie receivers as well. So I'm very excited. This is a fun group of 6 players, so I'm hyped to get into it.
It really is. All of them interesting. All of them had some interesting things last year. Maybe one's TBD, but there's stuff to talk about there. But actually, one of the guys we're going to be talking about, this guy's favorite team is this guy's the starting quarterback for. That is Michael Penix, Atlanta Falcons, and my guy, Mr. Verts, Charles McDonald. How are you doing today, Chuck?
I've been great. I'm down in North Carolina visiting my parents. My birthday's coming up on Memorial Day. I've been outside as much as I can, hanging with the dogs. I don't get to see that much. So it's good. It's good. We're going to come in and tear into my soul and have an honest conversation about Michael Penix. But other than that, I'm feeling good.
Just drag you. Throw you in there, just drag you into that discussion. I know we've kind of waved away some of these, going like, we'll get to it, but now we're forcing our hand getting into it because, like Matt said, it is an interesting group of guys. 6 quarterbacks were taken in the first round last year: Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, Drake Maye, Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy, and Bo Nix. 5 of them started last year. JJ McCarthy suffered an injury in the preseason, so did not play. Sam Darnold, of course, was the Vikings quarterback, but it looks like he is starting now in 2026. I mentioned Rattler as the other guy. The Saints is kind of a mess, so we're just going to absolve from talking about Rattler right now until we get some clarity on the situation in New Orleans. But we're going to talk about the optimism, go 1 to 10 on these guys, where we maybe think that where we feel the optimism now, maybe where we feel about it at the end of the season, and what would a good year look like for all these guys. We're going to talk about first the guy that was 1-1 and kind of the consensus 1-1, maybe not my number 1 guy, but generally a very highly regarded prospect. That was Caleb Williams going to the Chicago Bears last year. It was messy. It was a messy season in Chicago. We have talked about it plenty of times on this show. Failed Hail Mary defense there, just the season falling apart when they came back after their bye week. So it was bye week, Hail Mary, everything unraveling for the Chicago Bears, especially on offense. The offensive line had a lot of woes. Caleb Williams took a lot of sacks, had an up and down year with some flashes in there, but just a very disappointing season for the Chicago Bears. And, their number 1 pick that they have a lot of optimism for there. But Matt, I'm going to start with you because I know Roman Dunze is one of those rookie receivers that you watched. So I know you got plenty of Caleb Williams watching here. But when you were looking at Caleb, what stood out to you, good or bad, from his rookie season?
Oh, lot to
First
unpack.
thing that comes to mind, you're like, this is what I just kept noticing with this guy.
I mean, I just think he was so doomed kind of from the beginning, and we'll kind of talk about some of that. I'm here pretty short. I'm in short order. I'm pretty sure, but I just don't think that offense was ever going to work. For a variety of reasons. I think coaching staff, it was ill-equipped. I also just think they put a little bit too much on his plate. And Nate, I know you talked about that at times during the year as almost like a positive that they were tasking him with this many things, but I don't, especially what we know now, I don't think that they were preparing him to be tasked with all of those things.
Yes.
And even beyond just like the protection stuff and, identifying things at the line and sort of just being kind of the field general, I just think that receiver room was so poorly constructed. They had a lot of talent. They had a lot of names in there, but there wasn't like clear-cut roles, like this guy's doing this and this guy's doing that. It felt kind of mishmashed together. There was obviously a lot of ego and politicking issues. So that's like the first thing that comes to my mind. Actually watching him play, I think the things that's really like encouraging for him is when he is, I think there's been a kind of a discussion of, can he be like a Jared Goff type of quarterback for Ben Johnson, which I don't think you want Caleb Williams being Jared Goff. They're two very different players. But I think when he is feeling the rhythm of plays and it likes the structure, I think he's really confident and decisive. But then when I think he doesn't like what he sees, or he's not confident in the protection, in the route concepts, I think that like confidence completely erodes from his game. And so then does the fundamentals, and so does then the accuracy down the field. That was the thing that I think a lot of people have made this point, is that like, if you look at his, catchable ball rate or stuff like that, or his accuracy metrics down the field, they're really poor. I think a lot of that can be cleaned up if you just improve the structure of the offense. Like, I really don't think we could talk enough about how bad it was last year. And obviously all the metrics bear that out. He's 26 in adjusted yards per attempt. He's 31st in EPA per dropback. He's 33rd in success rate among guys who had 200 plus attempts. Like, it was bad. The metrics were bad. The results were bad. But I think, again, just my original point there was, I just do really feel like he and a lot of these players here were set up to fail. Not that there was open throws that he didn't take, that he needs to get the ball out faster. But again, I just think structurally, like, one thing started to compound into another, to the point that, like, I think all the fundamentals for him really got pretty poor throughout the course of the season.
No, all great points. And I'll expand on some of those too, and some that the article too, maybe just that Seth Wickersham wrote. Well, it's not an article. He wrote a book, about quarterbacks, American Kings. That's coming out, and there's an excerpt that came out on ESPN talking about Caleb Williams going through last year. So the protection stuff was something I thought was extraordinary, because I was like, I don't see rookie quarterbacks handling this. And then also he's talking about, I didn't really know what to watch. I'll talk a little bit more and dive into that, but I did think that was interesting, kind of a disconnect what was going on in Chicago. But Charles, it was such an up and down season. I mean, Matt just referred to some of the stats. Every stat you look at, it's bottom 5, bottom 2, bottom 3. Historically, this year, like, just does not stack up where there's one thing they can really stand on. But why do you think, I'm just assuming here, just maybe offhand conversations we had, why should there still be optimism with Caleb Williams? Why do you think maybe, I know you liked him a lot coming out of college as well.
Still do.
But still do. And why do you still do? Still have that optimism, and still, why do you like him?
Because I guess I'm getting older, I'm getting soft. I just don't feel the need to like slam some of these guys like when they go through ruts as rookies. And I tend to focus more on like the highs, because that's what we're chasing. That first year in the NFL is always going to be hard with an offensive mind, whereas we described during the season, you got Darnell Wright at right tackle, then 4 guys on the ground, like half the place is what it felt like. So it was a bad situation, but I think at its best, like the game that I come back to is, I don't remember if it was the first or second Vikings game, but it was the one that they played at Soldier Field last year. Yeah, and when Caleb remembers like, oh wait, actually, like among NFL quarterbacks, I'm one of the better athletes in the league with an absolute cannon for an arm, and he plays like that, you can just see like where like potential like top 10, top 5 quarterback play can be down the road. Because there were plays where he's confident, stepping over the pocket, firing downfield in the really tight windows, and it's just perfect on the money. And I hope that maybe playing in a more stable environment with Ben Johnson and hopefully these offensive line upgrades are at least going to get them back to a stable-ish platform. He can actually just show it and let it rip, because I'm with Matt. The Jared Goff stuff, I would hope that you can think Caleb Williams can eventually do a little bit more than Jared Goff is doing for your offense. And that's not to say that Jared Goff isn't a quality quarterback, because I think he's obviously proven that, but just not that extra gear of athleticism that I think makes you go. And you even saw it when they went to London and they played the Jaguars, and Ryan Nielsen's coming out with that ridiculous, we're going to play cover 2 man every single snap. And Caleb's like, okay, fine, I'm going to go. And he almost got like 100 yards rushing in that game. So I just hope that this year in this environment that he can remember that, like, skill set wise, he's one of the baddest dudes in the league. And that's still there. So hopefully they can just get an environment to coax it out of him. Last year was bad. Dude, we even had Thomas Brown. He was saying how many pounds did he lose in like the 3 weeks where he took over as.
God.
He was like, I'm not. Your head coach. I'm not eating. Like my head coach isn't eating. I'm scared. I don't know what's going on. So hopefully this is better for him. I'm still full all the way in on Caleb Williams as for the future.
Yeah, if I was a Bears fan, I would never want to think about the 2024 Bears again. I say this actually as some sympathy with my buddy Andy Behrens over on the fantasy show. That like our producer Colin is like texting him excerpts from these article that ESPN article, the excerpt from the book that you mentioned. And I was like, dude, we have to stop, because if I was a Bears fan, again, I would just want to. And I know we're talking about the season in retrospect because it's instructive a little bit to what goes forward, but I would be hoping that none of that matters. Like by this time next year, that like 2024 Bears team and Keenan Allen and all this like stuff, we just laugh at it, and like it's a little bit of like a little funny footnote on Caleb Williams' great career. That's what I would be hoping for.
Yeah, but the fact that going into like Trevor Lawrence's rookie year with Urban Meyer, there's a part of me that goes, man, this might get ugly. Thinking about Urban Meyer. Last year, I was like, I didn't think Eberflus was the greatest coach in the world, but I always thought there was some competency there, and I thought at least there would be some competence. I didn't think it would just end with such bad feelings. Like, I thought maybe people would be underwhelmed, especially the expectations that were going in last year. This is the greatest rookie ecosystem ever, QB ecosystem, all that stuff, which didn't agree with a lot of it. I was like, no, I think it's pretty good, but that O-line, it's now, all right, now we can kind of refresh it and actually have some optimism about what that situation is with everything. But no, the Seth Wickersham book, there's a lot of quotes or a lot of sourcing from Caleb Williams' dad about how Caleb Williams had hesitations with going to Chicago, the place that quarterbacks die. And then so it ended up with him going like, no, I want to turn this team around. I want to turn the city around and get it built, which I thought that was that result, or that final answer from Caleb, at least reported answer from Caleb, was actually should have been the takeaway, as opposed to the trepidation that everyone that they had, which was, I mean, we all know this with the Chicago's history on offense, especially, but even last year, it was like, well, this was founded. This was not unfounded. This was very founded hesitations that they had about this situation. So I thought the end game there, he's like, no, I want to go there and I want to change this. But his whole quote about, oh, no one's telling me what to watch. It's not that the players don't watch film, and especially quarterbacks. And I could tell Caleb Williams watches film. I actually think that's one of his mind has been one of the most pleasant surprises of his game. Like, I really think can be a supreme processor, and the fact he can handle the pre-snap stuff. What he was referring to there, because I had so many replies when I quote tweeted it and all that, I couldn't help myself. And people were just like, oh, you need to be told to watch film. It's like, it's not that he's not watching film. When you go in each week, you go, all right, we're playing the Seahawks here. Man, on third down, they're going to run a lot of quarters. On first, you've watched for some blitzes here. Okay, this is the percentages of that. What I think Caleb was referring to is he never had those extra meetings going like, all right, I put on the film. What's our game plan? What should I be focusing on? Which quarterbacks get to. Like, you get to that point where you can just plop on the film and know your kind of checklist when you're watching film. I'm going to watch third downs here. I'm going to watch who's the pass rusher getting after us. What does this corner like to do? Do they have any indications of blitzes? And you work down that checklist. That's what he was referring to. Which, honestly, hearing a lot about Shane Waldron after the fact and hearing about the other coaching staff, I'm like, yeah, I'm not shocked here. Like, that nobody was just sitting down and going like, all right, we're going to go through this. We're going to do these extra meetings. So that was just the reporting, and the quotes came out, made it look just even bad, and especially probably was bad. But the fact that he could handle so much, they're doing no huddle where he's signaling everything and calling the plays at the line without listening to the headset. I can tell he's not, because he's just doing it right away. Protection stuff. That stuff is so advanced. Matt, what you said, maybe it wasn't the best thing because it's putting so much on a young quarterback that hasn't played. But the fact, I think that the long-term growth, the long-term benefit of that will pay dividends, even if it just was such a rough year. But I'm optimistic. I am pretty excited to see what this looks like. They beefed up the offensive line. This guy, Caleb, is going to be he's a sub 6'2" quarterback. You're always going to have a strong interior, which we've talked about. I do like that. Dan Rauscher is the offensive line coach. You know who was his quarterback for a long time? Drew Brees, sub 6'2" quarterback. So they have a better infrastructure here, which I think is obvious. I don't think you even need Football 301 to dive into it, but I do think it's actually the perfect one-to-one as far as scheme, play style of coaches, what they prefer, philosophy with the quarterback. So I think this is going to look good. I think they're going to put him on the move more with bootlegs, which I think is going to match their run game. I think he's going to be good in play action. Caleb's comfortable performing under center, which is, Matt, what you're referring to a little bit about that Jared Goff stuff. Caleb, as much as people think he's like kind of a playground, run around quarterback, he wants to be an in-structure quarterback. That is why I always bring up the Drew Brees comparison. That is what he wants to be. He just also can do the creation craziness, unbelievable balance, one of the most balanced athletes I've ever watched on film. And I really mean that, especially at quarterback. And I think he was stubborn last year, got some bad coaching, but man, I really am optimistic. I was watching some of these games. I watched the 3-6 game against the Seahawks in week 17, that Vikings game that I referred to. Charles, I watched these this last week, and they're just so much good. There's so much good pocket movement. He couldn't rely on Keenan Allen's running the wrong route sometimes. It's like when you're a longtime vet is running wrong routes or bad spacing or getting beat up, who can I rely on as a rookie?
Right.
You know, like those are the guys that you're supposed to just set your clock to, you know, like, and so that it was just a mess. We can say it 500 different ways. It was a mess. But I am still optimistic at Caleb. I mean, I know it's kind of a made up scale. I'll sit here on May 21st and say I have like an 8 optimism about how this year is going to look because of just what the in between stuff, the minutia of what Caleb did last year. Matt, higher, lower?
I was going to give it like a 7. Okay. I really think the key here is the coaching staff. I think this is a group that's both from Ben Johnson and the quarterbacks to also the receivers too, like Antoine Randall. I think all these guys are really invested in actually teaching these players, which I think is key. I think it's going to be key for him. I think it's going to be key for Roma Dunze, who like those guys are just never on the same page against zone coverage. So like that's a pretty consistent thing that I think matters here. And also, I mean, in addition to the offensive line, also I just think like, I don't know, expectations should be pretty they won't be because they're the Bears and they always talk themselves into like, hey, this is our year. But I do think that expectations like should be pretty modest here. And like him just even being functional and this offense being functional, like to me, I think that's well within the range of outcomes. And I'd give it a 7. I think the one thing also too, DJ Moore, this is his, we'll see like what DJ Moore is in this offense. And, you know, I think the Luther Burden pick was instructive to them kind of putting his feet to the fire, but this is the first time DJ Moore is going to be having the same week 1 starting quarterback in his entire career, which I think is pretty crazy. And those are talk about two guys who definitely weren't on the same page at times last year. So hopefully DJ Moore, with the consistency at quarterback, could be a little bit more bought into the proceedings here.
Charles, what number are you dropping on the optimism scale at this point in time?
I'll give it a 6. I'm still kind of worried about this offensive line. Drew Dahlman's okay. You know, to me, he's like an average starting center. And anytime a team is trying to get rid of someone they just signed to a big contract a year ago, I would take that as a red flag in terms of the Jonah Jackson trade. So, so then potentially you're looking at like, all right, the right side of our line's all right because Darnell Wright's good, and Jonah Jackson to me is a huge wild card. And the left side, I guess, just depends on how good Joe Thuney still is, which, you know, he's getting up there and he could fall off at any time too. So I think there's a little bit more danger here with the offensive line, maybe than people are saying, but it's better than what they had last year, and that alone should get it going. So I'm going to give it a 6.
Okay. No, I think that's fair. He's the number one thing, he's got to cut the sacks. And I think some of it was the situation, and I think some of it was stubbornness. He's going to take more. He's always going to be an above average sack rate guy because he wants to create and wants to go through the progression, wants to do all that stuff. So he's always going to be a little higher, but he can't be above 10%. So like that has got to be the one thing, even more than the deep ball stuff, which Matt, you addressed. It's just that sack stuff. And I think that's just going to come with a better, more conducive ecosystem and stuff. So maybe that's what's leading to the optimism, but I think that's very fair, Charles. I wish I know they took Trapilo on day 2 as a tackle, but it's just a little more depth. Just one more interior guy, and I'd feel way better about this. Yeah. So I think that's fair. I'm really excited to watch the Bears this year. I think it's going to be really, really cool with Ben Johnson and Caleb and what they do. There's going to be ups and downs, but I'm still optimistic on it. Getting into the guy that I think universally we can say had the best year amongst these rookie quarterbacks, and I think that's definitive. Of course, won Rookie of the Year. I think it was very well earned. As Jayden Daniels, the number 2 pick to the Washington Commanders, finished with the 4th highest EPA per play among rookie quarterbacks since 2012. There's 28 quarterbacks. I'm going to be referring to this list quite a bit, so might as well just drop it in now. The three guys above him that finished higher were Dak Prescott, RG3, and Russell Wilson. And then the rest of the top 10 is Mac Jones, Andrew Luck, Justin Herbert, Teddy Bridgewater, and Kyler Murray, and then Jameis Winston, if I can count to 10. Man, I don't know where you guys want to start, what the strengths of this game is. Matt, Jayden Daniels, I have some reviewing of him. Have you watched Luke McCaffrey yet?
I'm going to save that one until we see if he's actually going to get on the football
I wasn't sure
field.
if that was part of it. I know you've watched plenty of Commanders, though, and everything, but Jayden Daniels, how does he have you feeling right now, May 21st, after we're outside the glow of maybe the rookie season still high on him?
Yeah, I'm still glowing. Spoiler alert for our quarterback ranking.
Yeah, I was
going
to say.
I have Jayden Daniels ranked really high.
Yes,
I just think he checks so many boxes. He's accurate to all three levels of the field. Obviously, I always talk about it. He's like obnoxiously cool under any sort of like, and not pressure as in like, pass rushers, like pressure in terms of the moment. Like nothing is ever too big for him. I think that you can't say that enough. I also thought that he was like a better scrambler than maybe I thought he'd be in the NFL. He was like he led all quarterbacks in scramble yards. And he was like a true weapon there. And, I think there's some moments where, hey, maybe you want him to sit there and like stare down the barrel instead of taking off, but he's so productive and useful as a scrambler. You almost don't want to hold that against him. So I just also think like the nitpicks in his game that you can make are truly nitpicks. And there are nitpicks that you could say about guys like, that were young players at different points of their career too, that we now consider among like the game's elite. And, I mean, truly, I think that is the ceiling for him, is to be considered in, that Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, like cohort at some point. So I'm very optimistic going forward. The only hesitation I have is not about him, is just, did they kind of do enough? Like, did they make the right moves in terms of the pass catchers? Like you mentioned, Luke McCaffrey. I thought McCaffrey showed some things in very brief moments, but he barely played, which I think is a little bit concerning, that considering they didn't have a lot of guys combating him on that depth chart. McLaurin's still great, but he's a sneaky older player. Not that I'm predicting like a McLaurin fall off, but he is a sneaky older player for being a 2019 draft pick. Debo is Debo. Debo has the third worst success rate versus man coverage in reception perception history last season. Real big fall off for him. So that's like the only thing I'm a little bit worried about. But otherwise, yeah, in terms of Jayden Daniels himself, I saw everything I needed to see in year one to think like this is one of the next best quarterbacks in the league.
Charles, similar levels of optimism, or do you have anything maybe that you're like, I maybe want to see this in year two and beyond?
I don't really know how to. It's weird to kind of talk about the Commanders' offense because they just live and die so much on third and fourth down. But like when you look at their first and second down numbers, those are still pretty good too. Which is kind of like it's a weird like combination of stats. But usually when you see teams that have so many third down plays and so many fourth down plays, that means they suck on first.
Yep.
Right. But their numbers average out to be pretty good. So I still think they should have a pretty good year on offense. I think getting Tunsil and Connerly this offseason at tackle was huge. Because even if Tunsil could just cut down on the penalties, I think that's still probably pretty good left tackle. All in all, it's an upgrade of what you had last year. Yeah. And we talked about Connerly a bunch, where we're all high on him and think he can be one of the better tackles in the league. So that's pretty good, because Daniels is someone who's going to expose himself to a lot of hits. Mm-hmm. He did pretty well last year, I think, to stay up. I mean, we saw that huge hit in the game against Tampa Bay where he got rocked out of bounds, and you could see, okay, he really does weigh like 190 something. You know,
I was nervous. That was week one. I was nervous.
Yeah, and I think he was like, "Wow, that space closed a little quicker than against Florida."
Yeah, you still have the moments where you're like, "Oh, okay, he does still weigh like 195 pounds."
Yes,
that's a little scary. But man, like the escapability is just. It's so hard to find. And I think that as long as he can run a 4.3, I don't really see why that's going to go away. I think that they're probably going to be one of the better offenses in the league this year. I just want to see if they can, I guess, avoid how many third and fourth downs they have to play. Because over the long haul, that's just not a sustainable style of football, just living in like these one-play samples. But other than that, man, the more I looked at it, I was like, man, I think I'm still in on this guy. He just generated so much by himself. And now he has a little more help on the offensive line.
What was really encouraging for me, or really where I was kind of like reviewing him again. It's fun watching him in season, then taking a breath, and then watching him after, a few months after. It's just that he doesn't make mistakes. That. It's just he's so hyper efficient is how I kind of just keep describing him. Almost like Dak that can run a 4.3, where it's just
pretty cool
just
player.
a lot. Yeah, that's a really cool player. And it's even blemishes I still have. Okay. Takes a few too many sacks and doesn't throw a ton over the middle, which is always what I prefer. Guess what? He threw it better over the middle than he ever did in college. And it's already a thing where he can hang his hat on it. So, all right, that blemish isn't enough to hinder his game. You know what I mean? Like, he can win in other ways so well, throwing to the outside, throwing accurately. When he does take sacks, he also doesn't take back-breaking sacks. He has a high sack rate. He took the 6th most sacks last year. I think his sack rate was over 9%, but he only lost the 11th most sack yards. It's a lot of 2-yard losses, 3-yard losses, 4-yard losses. Yeah, you don't want your quarterback to get sacked that much and take those, but when you're going for it on 4th down every time, all right, we'll get it. All right, say I take a sack on 1st down. It's 1st and 15 now, or 2nd and 15 now. 6-yard gain, 7-yard gain on 2nd down. All right, it's 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8. Another 6-yard gains, 4th and 3. There's a 1st down. So those weren't backbreakers. It's not like Jalen Hurts takes sacks; they're 15-yard losses. Like that. And Russell Wilson, when he took sacks, especially early in his career, 12-yard losses. Those are drive killers. Done. Dead. This is what Ben Johnson was referring to when he was talking about EPA and taking sacks. Yeah. And then even when he's working on with Caleb Williams. That was like a nice, I wouldn't say a pleasant surprise, but it was like, okay, you can win this way. That's okay. You can be a runner. You don't take huge hits. He takes a couple. We just laughed about the Bucs one. But I mean, I'm looking, even just thinking right now, I can only remember 2 or 3 bigger hits that he took. So I was like, all right, that's already an improvement. You're getting out of bounds. You're getting efficient yards. He's able to pull out defenders' grasps a lot better than I thought. His wiry strength is actually, he's pretty strong and be able to pull out of guys, which again, pleasant surprise. I had some iffiness on that, how it translates to the NFL. He's already shown it as a rookie, so that was pretty cool. I think no matter what, the floor of Jayden Daniels is always going to be so high because he's efficient, doesn't make mistakes, accurate, and can run. And yeah, there's gonna be times where it's gonna be a little boom bust with how open things are down the field. I still want him to push the ball sometimes. I think sometimes he takes the low on high lows a little too often. These are minor blemishes.
Right.
I mean, that again, nitpicking. That is truly nitpicking. He is. I was kind of hesitant on him throughout the year. Reviewing him, like, no, this is a keeper. This is a guy that's not going to have that scary RG3 fall off or that scary Mac Jones fall off. I don't think sometimes it will be as good because they're so hyper efficient on 3rd and 4th down. But man, I don't know. I see this sticking, and I see them boosting up the offensive line. That's only going to help. They have even more reliability, maybe even some more guys that can create some yak. But he was making him and Zach Ertz had chemistry, because he was just so good throwing them all. That's what it's cool when these quarterbacks do that with these random guys. And it's like, oh, they have chemistry. And it's like, usually it's because the quarterback's pretty good, so I'm not going to take that away. And speaking to the scramble stuff, he had 75 scrambles last year. I think we brought us up at the end of the year award show when we gave him Rookie of the Year. 75 scrambles last year is the most in True Media's database, which goes back to 2002. 3rd highest scramble rate. He had a 71% scramble success rate. 53 of those 75 scrambles were an efficient play for Washington. That's tremendous. That's how you win games. And that's how you stay ahead of the chains constantly. So, man, doesn't put the ball in harm's way, accurate, and can run. That's a good combo of quarterbacks. He's skinny, and I'm going to keep an eye on that, but he's showing a lot that I'm like, oh, man, this is a real good player. My optimism's, at least an 8. I might be, I think maybe Commanders are going to have some cold water thrown on them at some times this year, harder schedule, some of the luck that they had. But man, I think Jaden's just always going to keep him in games because his floor is so high. So at least an 8 for me, maybe even higher. Charles, you feeling the same?
Yeah, I'm about an 8. I just think, because I went back and watched, this is just, he's a special guy. With the speed and the accuracy alone are enough to keep you at a high floor, and he's going to keep attacking down the field. It's a lot of fun to watch him play. Is it the most complex offense? No, but I like watching it. And they score a lot of big plays.
Right. Honestly, we've said requiem for Cliff Kingsbury, man. It's like just watching them, man, all last year. I don't think I even used that term right, but I'm going to use it like that. But honestly, watching them honestly, it was a cool offense, and watching him operate, it's a cool thing. It's a perfect merging of quarterback skill set and offense. What about you, Matt? What's your optimism scale at?
Yeah, I'll go 9. I'd go 10 out of 10 if they'd had like one more dynamic pass catcher or even like another back somewhere in this offseason. That's the only thing kind of holding me back from 10.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. I mean, I think one of the fun conversations is going to be which NFC East quarterback you take. You know, like, do you prefer Dak, Jalen Hurts, or Jayden Daniels? Like, I think that's going to be a fun conversation to watch throughout this year, because especially 3 very stylistically different quarterbacks. Even if Jayden Daniels is like the split of those two, of Hurts and Dak. You know what I mean? Like, he's the merger of it, maybe much faster, of course, but yeah, kind of the in between of those guys. So I think it's going to be fun to watch how that all goes throughout the year. All right, going on to the number 3 pick, because we went 1, 2, 3 in this class. That is Drake Maye, Patriots quarterback. Now the entire staff has been fired, so he's got a whole new coaching staff with him. Same with like Caleb Williams that we just talked about before. But I'll save my Drake Maye thoughts for the end of this discussion. Charles, I'll start with you, actually. Drake Maye, how are we feeling about what his situation is this year for the Patriots, what we saw from him last year? Where do we stand with Mr. Maye?
I'm excited. I'm excited because last year was awesome. Because I thought last year, I don't know. I understand Jayden Daniels won Rookie of the Year, but sometimes I felt more impressed with what I was seeing from Drake Maye. Only because it just felt like the structure of the team was not there. Obviously, there was something at all. Yeah. Like no offensive line. The weapons that they had didn't really work out. I guess Gerard Mayo was a widow mean to what's his name, Jalen Polk, and that made him forget how to catch the ball. So maybe that'll. Dude, I can't get enough of that storyline. Give me a break. Oh, my coach is so mean to me. I forgot
the Patriots receivers, man.
They were awful.
Oh my God, what a mess.
Awful. Yeah, so it was just a terrible mess, and we'll see what happens with Stephon Diggs. I don't know how much you can bank on that, but at least they just threw enough bodies at this where it's just like someone's got to come out of this group. We got to have at least one guy that emerges as like a real pass catcher, whether it's Kyle Williams or Polk comes back and has a better year. I hope it's not Matt Collins. I think we've all seen enough of the Matt Collins experience over the past few years. But I think what Drake showed last year in terms of just being able to generate offense by himself, and I think he does that well, even standing in the pocket with the way that he's able to throw guys open, just fearless under pressure, the accuracy while guys are coming after him. I thought it was just so impressive that with what they had around him, I think he finished 12th or 13th in like EPA per dropback last year among all quarterbacks, which is kind of crazy because I think when you look at most quarterbacks and guys who kind of need a supporting cast around them, they probably would have drowned in that situation last year. So the fact that he could even just stay up and just be his own generator of plays when things are falling apart, it gives you such a high floor for what this offense can be. And now they at least have one quality starter on the offensive line and Will Campbell, hopefully, and Morgan Moses is an upgrade over what they had last year. Still a little concerned about the interior. Garrett Bradbury starting at center for now isn't all that exciting. Doug Marrone, offensive line coach, is a little shaky too. But Drake can do it. I think. I think this is going to be a big year for him just because he himself is like this own lightning rod of production. No matter who's around him. So I'm trying not to get too ahead of myself because I do doubt like some of the coaching pieces around this and the offensive line is still there. But I just thought he was so good last year, especially down the stretch, that I still find myself being all the way in here.
Yeah. Flashes are very bright. And again, I'll talk about it in a sec. Matt, before I get to my gush session, Drake Maye, because did you chart Jalen Polk?
I did.
Because it took you 15 seconds. Before you're
well, he played so much for like 5 or 6 games, and then finishing the sample. So it was real quick, which is actually really interesting on the Polk thing because I wrote this in his reception perception profile that he was he's the perfect type of player that I think was set up to fail coming to the year because like they had him run the 9 route was his most commonly run route, and he basically took all of his snaps from X receiver, which there was quite literally nothing on his on his college film, his RP profile as a prospect that indicated like he should be doing that. But then, as Charles pointed out, he also did nothing to earn himself like any goodwill or role catering. So it's one of those like Well, okay, yeah, I'd love to see him in a different position, but what do you want him to do? He doesn't even
Remember we
catch
joked about this where like the calling cards of him are like he catches everything and he's a good blocker and he's smart, and it's like he's dropping everything and he's going to the wrong guy and blocking the wrong guy and false starting. Like, he might have been the worst blocking receiver in the league last year, like or at least that I've seen so far. Which again, he was so good at that in college. So part of me does think, I mean, educated guess, not a lot of good coaching going on in New England last year, but that's still again just not was high school. He was a former high school coach. Yeah, sorry, I don't want to dog the guy, but I looked at his resume and I'm like, yeah, this is making a lot more sense now.
Yeah, I mean, even you could argue Gerard Mayo was a little bit set up to fail last year too, because he was promoted he was promoted like multiple levels. Probably just wasn't really ready for that gig. So I'm hoping for Hampton VA's finest, Gerard Mayo, like that he eventually finds his way back into the coaching game if that's what he wants to do. But just didn't go well for anybody there last year. But yeah, and then my point on Polk, that once they actually got him back into the lineup, they actually started playing him like off the line of scrimmage a ton, but they just, at that point, he was so phased out, it didn't matter, and he barely played. So weird stuff all throughout New England's offense last year. For a guy that they were like, yeah, we would have drafted him over Ladd McConkey anyways, even if we didn't trade down, which, I mean, I wouldn't have said that publicly.
I wouldn't have said that, man.
No.
That's exactly what they need, man.
Just say you had him tiered similarly and that he went before you. That's all he had to say.
Yeah, I mean, they traded out of the pick that eventually became McConkey, and they still said, yeah, don't worry, we would have taken him again. Wouldn't have said that because, yeah, Charles, like Ladd would be exactly what this team needed. Yes. All that being said, like that was what was going on last year, and I think Drake Maye just was awesome in that environment. I'm obsessed with two stats of his because I just wrote a piece on receivers in and out of the quarterback wilderness, and I was looking at some Drake Maye stuff kind of in sort of relation to that. Number one, he was second in scramble yards behind only Jayden Daniels, which is impressive anyways because he didn't start a full season. But the 407 yards he had on scrambles was almost all of his 421 rushing yards. So they did like nothing from a designed rush perspective with him. And that's
7
impressive.
Design runs.
Yeah, 7. And I think they're going to do a ton more of that. Like Drake's already talked about, hey, I was watching some of that Cam Newton offense with Josh McDaniels in 2020. So that's a reason to be optimistic. And among players who threw 200 pass attempts last year, when the middle of the field was open, post snap, according to PFF, he was 5th in passing success rate. Not like no runs, like passing success rate. The guys ahead of him are Baker Mayfield, Joe Burrow, Tua, of course, and Lamar. Like that's a pretty good company for him to be in while he's throwing to, a bunch of goofball receivers and has poor pass protection, all that. I like the Diggs addition. I think Diggs played well last year. He's obviously an older player coming off an ACL, but if he can even give you kind of like a facsimile of what he was last year, that's good. I love Kyle Williams. I think we're all excited about that pick. So yeah, I think that Drake Maye showed us a lot last year. Like you gotta actually watch it. You don't just look at the stats. I think you have to watch what happened. And he's a really good over the middle passer. He's accurate. He's got a great arm, very talented. So yeah, I'm very confident that if the coaching staff is good, things all kind of coalesce there, and a few of these receivers break out, we could definitely be talking about like the breakout quarterback performance of the season.
I know I'm not all the way sure if it's to the moon this year, but we're launching that way. Like we're halfway there. We're at least out of the stratosphere and circling a lot, or circling. We're going around. We're like, oh my God, I just thought of an astronaut, lost it right away. But we're going around. We're John Glenning it. We're, going around the earth over and over. Yeah, there we go. I said 7 design runs, and honestly, it was fewer than that because 4 of those that were counted as runs were like snap fumbles.
Oh,
so
cool.
So that's 3, and I think 2 of the other ones were sneaks. So I think it was 1 design run the entire year. And this is a guy that's an excellent athlete. That's why I really liked him coming out of college. But I'm glad you brought that up, Matt, because that's one of the optimisms I have about Josh McDaniels as the OC. And I mean, Patriots coaches are like the king of the Peter principle. God. But like, all right, McDaniels just being an OC and just being in charge of the offense, I like. He always had structured offenses. They had a really good run game. They tied stuff together with what the quarterback likes, whether it was Tom Brady or Mac Jones or Cam Newton. Like no matter what, the offense really fits the quarterback, which I like. I bring up this anecdote all the time that McDaniels, when he was that 1 year with Cam Newton, which is one of my favorite random offenses since I've been in media, he let Cam keep his cadence, which is a very unique cadence. But I always thought that McDaniels, who everyone thinks is some hardo, he is, but that like he's so player unfriendly and all that. It's like, no, he understands what his players are good at, what they're comfortable with, and he goes with that. But that run game that he used with Cam Newton, we'll always have that Patriots Seahawks Sunday or Monday night game from that year where it was magical, where it looked amazing. But like now imagine Maye, not as aggressive as you would with Cam, because Cam can handle so much between the tackles, and Maye is like 225. He's not Cam 250, but he can do those runs. He is a sick athlete. He was second in scramble rate, only behind Jayden Daniels last year. And his success rate was 69% on 45 scrambles. Nice. I know. That's excellent. Like
someone had to say it.
You had to. It was easy. I try to round it up too. It was like 69 on the dot too. So, but his, anything above 60% is great. So like the fact that you're near 70, that was fifth among all qualifying scramblers last year. It's what you want. And on top of the throwing stuff, I'm glad you brought up the dropback success rate stuff, or the success rate stuff, Matt. He finished 16th in just dropback success rate, so including scrambles and sacks and everything, which at 46.5%. That's seventh among all rookie quarterbacks since 2012. So it's Dak, Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck, good start here. Jayden Daniels, also good start. Mac Jones, RG3, and then Drake Maye. And then he's above Stroud, who everyone thought had one of the best rookie quarterback seasons in our lifetimes. Tannehill, surprisingly, actually. And then Justin Herbert, who also had a rookie season that we consider one of the best amongst our lifetimes. And so, like, that's great that his efficiency is already at that high level in this bad circumstances. And the fact that I thought even early on he'd be a little boom busty as a quarterback until he figured it out. He shows so much more already. Of course, I was optimistic about him as a rookie going in. He was my number one guy in last year's class, but I'm up there at my optimism with this, because I think it'll be really cool with the quarterback situation. Or I'm sorry, the offensive player caller situation, a better offensive line. And, it can't get worse. Even if I think it's going to be like the 20th best offensive line, it's better than 32nd or 30th. I also just, I just think this makeup around him is going to be so much better that he's going to excel. I think I'm really excited to see what he does this year, because he's a star. Like he is. Honestly, I think all these three guys that we talked to, Caleb has that shot too. Like these guys to me are all star quality players. And I am always more of an optimist, but I really, really think it's with these guys. I think all three are top 10 guys that we're going to talk about every year. Maybe not this year for Caleb, and maybe not all the way there, but in their careers. But yeah, arm, creativity. Would also, you just mentioned, if you just look at the box score, it's not always great. Watch some of the highlights. Even if you don't watch every down, watch some of the highlights of Drake Maye, and they're up there as some of the best in the league. So I'm very, very excited. I'd put my optimism as an 8 as well, because I'm just giving all these guys 8s. But what about you guys? Charles?
I'll give it I think I'm at a 7. I don't know how to feel about McDaniels. I know how I feel about Doug Marrone. So I'm going to give it a 7. Right. We'll take it week by week. But I think I'm giving him a 7 mostly because I just believe in him as a talent so much. But supporting cast, I'm still we're going to see. We're going to see, because Josh McDaniels' last stint as a coach for the Raiders did not go well. And Doug Marrone had one of the worst iterations of Alabama's offensive line that I've ever seen in my whole life. And now he's back in the NFL too. So
I'm glad you bring up the Doug Marrone stuff, because I also have a lot of hesitancy on that. Like, I think of his old reputation from 10 years ago when he became Jags coach.
Before Jags.
He has not been a good line coach since he became the Jags head coach. Like, that's a decade.
Yeah. Dude, he went down to college and it was still bad. Like when Nick Saban overseeing him. So I don't know.
Yeah. With talent too. With guys that became first rounders on the line too. Yeah. Matt, what about you?
I think I'll go 7 too, for a lot of the same reasons. Like, I have some of the minor coaching staff questions. I think the receiver room at best could be average. But still, I think going from maybe subpar from the worst in the league is pretty huge. And I think the offensive line being that way is big. So yeah, them being a 7 is really just a testament to how much I feel about Drake Maye.
Yeah, I know it's kind of funny. Scott Peters, who's kind of like an unknown O-line coach, I would feel better. He was the offensive line coach last year. Their offensive line stunk, but I thought their rules were really good. Like, they were well taught. They got the most out of that group. Scott Peters, who's now the Bengals offensive line coach, I actually like that hire for them. But that was actually one where I was like, no, keep him. keep him. He's fine. He's fine. Oh, Doug Marrone. Okay, we'll see. So it's kind of the weird way the guy that was more unknown I felt better about than the guy that's known. All right, we're going to take our first break, and then we'll get back to the other 3 first-round quarterbacks from last year. All right, we are back. And actually, I have to double and triple and quadruple check this every time because I want to go over these quarterbacks in chronologically drafted order. I'm like, oh yeah, Penix was 4th. So we're going to Michael Penix, number 8 overall selection for the Atlanta Falcons. Kirk Cousins started most of the year, but Penix took over the last month or so of the season. Charles, I'm going to give you the floor. How are we feeling about Michael Penix in May before he starts his second year starting a quarterback?
Oh, I really wish they had held on to that first round pick, man. And that's not to say.
Still thinking about it.
Look,
last year's and next year's.
Yeah, it's all connected. It's all connected, So this is why I was just like, oh man, really? Like we're gonna do giving away the first round pick right now? So I think Penix, like when you average out all of it, is probably fine. I don't know if he's going to be like consistent enough to be good, but we were talking about it yesterday, and I think that he could end up being one of these like box score scout lovers where you look at the final score or you look at the final thing and it says like 21 of 35, 315 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Like, oh, that's not that bad. And then if you like watch the game, like a lot of it comes like 1 or 2 plays, because he can absolutely generate the big plays with his arm. He's got a cannon. But it's just, it can be all over the place sometimes. And I don't know how reasonable it is to expect that part of his game to change, right? Because that's who he was at Indiana. That's who he was at Washington. And that's who he was in the short sample size we saw him last year. So what, that's 7 years of playing like this?
Yep.
I mean, I'm going to guess that that's probably who he is. So I think they have enough around him to push for, potentially 7-8 wins, depending on how the rest of the NFC South shakes out. But I struggle to see a world where, like, especially this year, his first year as a starter, where the accuracy like gets pulled back into a point where he can be consistent enough where the arm strength is a factor on every play instead of like 60% of his plays. I think there's a 2-play sequence in the game where they had against the Commanders last year that I think just fully describes who he is as a player, because they had Drake London wide open, like in the corner of the end zone for a touchdown. And that ball could have hit a baby in the stands, bro. And Drake was wide open. And then the next play, you have Kyle Pitts, who's draped in like quadruple coverage on the goal line, and he pins it right on his chest in the swarm of defenders for a touchdown that got them back into the game. So those are the 2 Penixes. And you're going to see a lot of both in every single game that they play. It'll be as fun as it's aggravating. I think it'll probably equal out to about an average season when we're all said and done.
You almost nailed it, like 7-8 wins. Their over-under win total right now is 7.5. The Patriots have a higher win total than the Falcons right now. Patriots are 8.5. I know this is betting and all that, but Falcons.
We don't play defense in Atlanta. We don't do that. So.
No, you do, but then you get 240-pound edge rushers, so you can go against the Panthers and the Bucs and the Saints. Maybe. Matt, what about you with Michael Penix?
Yeah, he's a journey, man. I mean, like, just even watching him, like,
journey, man.
Yeah, right, exactly. Even just watching him throw out routes last year in his 3 starts was a wild ride. I mean, on the whole, he had 15 attempts on out routes last year, 11 completions, 9.8 yards per attempt, but like, actually putting your eyeballs on those 4 incompletions, it's like Charles said, you could like hit somebody in the stand, like, because they weren't even close. So it was either like the best catch of Drake London's career or the most disgusting miss that you've ever seen a quarterback make when Drake London is wide open. So like, as a big Drake London guy, I'm excited about Penix because I think there's a lot about his game that we just never seen a quarterback be able to access Drake London in those areas. And I think the offense is so well constructed to get the most out of Drake as a in-breaking route guy that I think Penix, as long as he can hit the broadside of a barn, will be able to like London will make him a better quarterback. He'll make him a more he looks more like an accurate quarterback, with, like Charles said, when you look at the box score, because he's such a good separator and they design him so much good stuff over the middle of the field. And then he does have the arm and the stones to access those deep outbreaking routes and things like that. It's just, can you be consistent, not just drive to drive, but like play to play? So I think he's going to be a tough guy for me to place on the optimism scale. So I'm going to be thinking about that as you're talking here. But that's just watch him throw out routes, and I think you'll get like sort of the journey that I'm talking about here.
Yeah, the first couple drives against Carolina in Week 18, I don't think he throws one on-target throw. Even one that's been highlighted, because people... And I went through it, and I was just like, wow.
Okay. There's one throw like early in that game where I think he hits Mooney on the sideline, but I wasn't sure if he was actually. Yes, I was like, I don't think he was actually throwing it to Mooney on that play.
No, he wasn't. Eyes, everything. I watched it 100 times, and people are clipping that like it's some S tier throw. And no, he just missed so bad that it ended up being a whole shot throw. And that's the thing. He has an absolute hose. That thing, you can hang clothes on the throws that he can whip that thing. It's elongated, you know. Someone had a great joke last year when he was coming out, because they were trying to just make. I wish I could credit them, but they said Byron Leftwich, seriously, because he's a lefty. No, like he's truly a left-handed quarterback, so he's like a mini Byron Leftwich, and I was like, yeah, that actually nails it. There's not a lot of touch on his throws. He's going to try though, and I do like that. I do appreciate that he tried. The Washington Commanders game, he throws because Bobby Wagner can't cover, so he throws a seam ball on a dagger concept, which not a lot of guys do. Like even vets do it. Jordan Love doesn't. We laugh. We're like, oh, aggressive Jordan Love. Dak Prescott doesn't. We're like, yeah, you better have your head, your chin strapped up if you're a receiver, Dak Prescott. There's Penix taking an extra hitch and just goes, yep. Rifles it in, and the receiver gets destroyed by the backside safety. Actually, a poor design, I will say, if I were critiquing the design, because you have to hold the backside safety. That's another discussion. But he's going to try it. And I always like quarterbacks that try it. There's a little Jay Cutler here, where it's like, he's going to make some highlight throws. He's going to have 5 misses that you're like, no other quarterback misses like that.
Yeah.
He's not accurate. I'll just straight up say, he's not accurate. He's not. He's truly just a howitzer back there, and just then you just hope that he goes into the right spot, because it's going to blow up. Raheem Morris talked about the pro day or the private workout. The ball was whizzing by his ear when he was playing linebacker. I was like, did you see where it went?
Yeah, it went over your head.
That quote killed me, because like, you need to hear it. Like, we can see it. We know he has a strong arm. I can see it.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, when you guys were talking about might hit a baby in the stands or whatever, I thought of Varsity Blues, where the guy, James Vanderbeek, clocks it and he throws it to the sideline and he hits the guy on the horse. Like that. That's what Penix throw. And it's not like we're just totally making fun of everything, but it's just like, it's wild when you watch it. Like at the Commanders game, the Panthers game, I was watching those. There's just some bad misses, and not like where it's like, oh, you got knocked off the launch point. You got knocked. So he has to clean that up. But like Charles said, I've seen a lot of Michael Penix. I watched him at Indiana. I watched him at Washington. This was his biggest negative, was that his accuracy is all over the place. It's scatter shot. He's going to give guys chances. I'll even bring up the Commanders game again. He had a back of the end zone where he misses one guy, but then it's an extended play. He gives Drake London a shot at the ball in the back of the end zone. I'm like, he tries it at least. Some guys would just scramble, take a sack or whatever. It's all right, I appreciate that. But the thing is, too, it's going to get harder. Last year, the Falcons finished with a 49.1 rushing success rate on running back runs. Okay, sounds high, right? Just running back runs. That's tied for the best rushing success rate by a team since 2002. They're tied with the 2004 Chiefs, who had multiple All-Pro linemen and Priest Holmes and Larry Johnson. It's literally the best running back run game that we have seen in modern football. I consider modern football from 2002 onwards. it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
So there's going to be more on it. I'm just saying it's math. It's going to be a really good run game. That is what this team is based on. I thought there was a big siloed offense though. Zone run, zone run, zone run. No play action looked like zone. No bootlegs looked like zone. The offense got to be a little more conducive, and I think better for that that's just me looking holistically at the whole offense.
Yeah.
Thing is with him, he doesn't really throw well on the move. Like, because he's so rigid and everything. So I'm curious how they kind of solve that formula for their offense, because their run game is going to be very good. Not going to be historically good, but very good. Might be historically good. Who knows? But I do think there's going to be a drop off. He's going to have to do more lifting because of that. So we'll see. The highlights are going to be cool. Matt, I'm going to put it on you now. What's your optimism scale?
Now I think I'm just gonna compare him to like the scorpions that they used in Game of Thrones, like the big like crossbow things that they shot at the dragon.
Yeah.
They either don't. It doesn't. They crank it. You got to really crank it up, and when it hits something, it's gonna kill a dragon. But when he misses, like it's not even gonna come close, and not like it has truly no impact. So for the scorpion, Michael Penix, I think I'm gonna go like. I think I'll go 5.5. I think I'll go 5.5 because I'm very excited to watch him. Like he's gonna be, even if I don't watch the game on Sunday, just because it's in the 1 o'clock window or whatever. Like that's gonna be a fun rewatch game. Like it's gonna be a blast. But your point about just like natural regression with the run game, and also like them and the Cardinals are on my radar that they did like truly nothing on offense, like nothing. And I know that they had to do both. Those teams needed. Yeah, both those teams needed. I mean, from like a personnel addition standpoint.
Oh, you mean personnel?
Like, both of those teams like needed so much help on the defense. I get it, but I think I still do.
All in, man.
God, I love this. God, I love this team so much. But like, I think you're also inviting some natural regression when you don't make any sort of additions either. And like I think the run game needed to evolve from like strictly outside zone stuff. Does that bring down the efficiency? And like we're talking about all these outbreaking routes. Darnell Mooney's best stuff last year was working like outbreaking routes with Kirk Cousins, and he's just not as big of a target as Drake London. So does he have that season again? So there's a little bit more questions I think than maybe we might be giving it credit for on this offense right now. But I do really like our buddy Derek Klassen talks about honorable like football, and I think Michael Penix is going to be really high on the honorable. For good results, good or bad, I think he's going to be very high on the honorable and like watchability rankings.
In wrestling, there was a guy named Chris Candido, and his gimmick was that no gimmicks needed. And that's kind of Michael Penix. Like there's no gimmicks with this. This is just straight launching balls and everything. I really like that. Cutler, I brought up that comparison. Brandon Marshall was probably the receiver that did best with Jay Cutler. And then my dad was there. They drafted Alshon Jeffrey for a reason, because it was like, we need big bodies because that ball is going to go every which direction. So I think Penix is of that same ilk, where Drake London and Kyle Pitts are actually great for this because of the wingspans that they bring. Charles, I'm scared to ask, actually. I'm excited to ask. Where are you at? Optimism scale.
5, I guess.
Okay.
Average, just like I expect the final output to be.
Yeah. I know, right? I'm going to go 5, too. That's kind of how I feel. It's not that I'm not... guys do things, they grow as pros ways we don't ever expect, that. But it's not like I'm not looking forward to watching the Falcons. I'm excited to watch this offense. Bijan rocks. The run game is awesome. Tyler Algier is awesome. Drake London's great. I think there's gonna be a lot of cool with the offense. I just think there's gonna be some real lows with some of these throws.
I'm scared of the O-line health regression too, because they were so healthy last year.
Very good point.
And now Dahlman's out. I don't really think that's a huge loss. I thought Newsel played just fine in replacement of him too. So it'll be kind of interesting. Lefty center snapping the lefty quarterback.
I was just gonna bring it up. I've never heard that.
I don't think I've seen it before either.
Well, because most lefty centers, they teach them when you're under center to switch hands to go righty. Because it just feels weird as the quarterback. It really does. It feels like the finger. All it feels weird. That sounded bad. But the Falcons have so many lefties. Bijan's a lefty. Drake London's a lefty. Penix is a lefty. Now the center's a lefty. Yeah, they're on to something here. They got a great batters lineup. Great bullpen working here. They can get all the lefty hitters out. No, but that is something. But great shout out at the center, though. I think he's solid. I actually kind of like him. But yeah, the O-line health is something we got to keep an eye on. All right, going to the next pick, our next quarterback selected. That was J.J. McCarthy, Minnesota Vikings. I feel like this one will be a little shorter. We've actually talked about a little bit about this on a recent show, talking about new faces that we really like, new additions. Matt brought up the offensive line trio for the Vikings, and that kind of led to a little mini J.J. McCarthy discussion here. But, he gets hurt last year, had some preseason moments, had a game where he had some nice plays, had a couple negative plays in that one as well. Gets hurt, has a couple surgeries this year. Vikings play weird footsie with other quarterbacks apparently, but now it looks like just what we thought. J.J. McCarthy will be the starting quarterback for the Vikings in 2025. Matt, I will start with you. How do you feel about J.J. McCarthy off of a game and a half of preseason tape or so? And I don't know what Michigan. Oh, Roman Wilson. You got some Roman Wilson in there as well. Yeah, but J.J. McCarthy thoughts though, Matt.
Yeah, no, I think. Again, this is another situation I was writing about because of the quarterback wilderness stuff. Like, I think you kind of have to say that the Vikings receivers are at least what I called like facing a fork in the road. Like, it just depends on, and I think Drake London, same thing. Like, it depends on if JJ McCarthy and Michael Penix are good, then they're not in the wilderness, and if they aren't, then they are. Like, that's just it's as simple as that. And we don't really know who JJ McCarthy is going to be yet. But I will say, just like looking back at the stats on Sam Darnold's year last year, was really sick. So like, even if we all know who Darnold is as a player, and like how much do we attribute that to him and how much do we attribute that to the ecosystem? I think I know my answer to that, but like regardless, that's a high bar to clear for a first year quarterback to come in. And like I said, just on passes of 10 plus air yards last year, Darnold was 6th in total EPA added. He was 5th in adjusted yards per attempt on those throws. And he was 7th in success rate. So like, again, just statistically one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Mm-hmm. Is McCarthy going to come in and do that right away? I don't necessarily know. But at the same time, I think they can have a good season and this offense can be very, very good even if he doesn't. So I think, he's obviously the trickiest eval just because we haven't seen him play in the NFL yet, where at least we got like 3 games on Penix. And I did like McCarthy a lot as a prospect. Like, I think he was probably, of these guys, probably number 4 for me, tier down from the top 3 to everybody else, but I think he'd probably have been my 4th guy. I'm generally like, I think you could drop almost anybody in this offense and they'd get some production. And I think McCarthy can ultimately be more than that in time.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. It's like, just bringing up like the Falcons run game, it's like it's probably not going to be as good as this, even if there's other better parts. It's like it's hard to recreate that, especially just the circumstances and everything. Charles, what about you with JJ McCarthy? What have you seen so far? How can you just feel about it right now with Maye?
I don't know. I am just having a personal struggle with myself because I don't want to say no excuses for a guy who's never started an NFL game.
Right.
But look at this offense, man. Like, look at it. And we already know so many pieces of this offense are certified good. We know the coach is good. We know the receivers are good. We know when healthy, the tackles are good. We know when healthy, the interior offensive line should be good too. So if everything stays up and they suck on offense this year, that would be a pretty huge red flag. But I also want to give him like the grace of coming off of an injury and not playing all of last season. And we only saw him. Well, it was only one preseason game, right? Before he got hurt.
Right.
It was one against the Raiders.
It was pretty good though. Yeah.
It was good.
No, it was
good. Right.
Yeah,
but
one bad play, one bad third down pick, I believe. And other than that, it was all pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's still like, and then he got hurt and we haven't seen him play since. So I don't know what to expect of him, but it will be kind of disappointing if he wasn't able to really start on the right foot with this supporting cast and the amount of talent that they have. So, like, on the optimism scale, I think I still got to go 7 or an 8 just because KOC is here. The O-line, they invested in the O-line. You got 3 new interior players, one that can kick out the tackle in case that you have problems there again with injuries. I don't know. Get it done. Just do it. You got to be great. It's time.
Yeah,
they got to compete. Look, they're ready to go now. You know
they are. The moves they're making. I mean, you don't get so aggressive in drafts unless you're pushing. It doesn't work that way because it's just contracts. But no, I said this the other day when we were talking about the new offensive line and everything. It's like, I actually think this is one of the best ecosystems for a first-year starting quarterback that I can think of. Probably comparable to Mahomes when his first year starting. Obviously, Kelsey and Tyreek, the O-line was pretty good too. Justin Herbert, his first year starting, had pretty good circumstances. Got to remember, the Chargers only had that high pick because of injuries the previous year. They still had a pretty good roster there. But like, this is good. Like, and so that's the thing, is like, he doesn't have to rock the world. We don't need a true, oh my God, I've never seen this supernova type of rookie season. It's just competency. And that's all. Honestly, if he is just a competent quarterback up to a level of like one of those Cousins years when he was in Minnesota, that is already a win. Anything more than that is a cherry on top. Like, I honestly, truly think that, just with the control of the contract, where they're at this day and age. But he can create. He's a good athlete. That he's a very loose athlete. And I think that that's why I had some optimism for him as a prospect. He was my QB4 as well. I had Drake Maye, Caleb Williams, and then like a half gap, Jayden, and then like a full gap, and then it was JJ. But I understood I would take him in the first. I thought I'd be more comfortable in the 20s. But that's just how this goes. A comparison I had for him was Rich Gannon when he came, as I remember him as a pro, who was a skinnier quarterback, could run, could throw well on the move, was accurate, elastic athlete, loose athlete. Maybe nothing was overwhelming to his game. Rich Gannon was I'm picturing him with the Raiders, not his early like Minnesota days, Delaware or anything, but was another guy that actually looks a lot like JJ McCarthy and how they play. But I like the tools. He's aggressive. He's good pocket movement, doesn't take sacks, throws the ball in the middle. He'll be aggressive and really trying to push the ball. A lot of that's in structure, like he can operate that offense. I thought some of the pre-snap stuff he showed at Michigan was good. That's probably why these coaches, I know coaches loved him in the interviews, and I'm sure because of that offensive system put him so much in Michigan. So I think a lot of that stuff will be pleasant, like pleasantly, I wouldn't say surprising, but like a pleasant quality of his game. Some of the more polish that he has, even if he's a first year starter and younger and all that. So my like optimism, I guess, is like a 6, a 6 or a 7, just because I think the ecosystem's so good. And I liked him. Like, I do think he has a lot of qualities. I didn't think he was a true blue chip quarterback prospect, but there's a lot of good with his game. And I just think KOC will make it work. The one negative I had with him, or a big one I noticed, was, this is just more of a mechanical thing, was when he would push the ball outside the numbers, his accuracy would kind of wave. And that was because he would just get really elongated. But that's more like me, former QB coach, going like, oh, I'd really work with him. I think KOC can see these things and fix them up too. And I think he's a good athlete and young. He can fix these things. But that was like one little mechanical thing. But Matt, where was your optimism level with McCarthy's first year starting?
Yeah, I'll say 6.5 here. And I really, just in contrast to what we talked about with the Falcons, you guys mentioned it too. I like that they invested both in mainstay things on the offensive ecosystem, like the 3 guys in the interior offensive line, but even added like Jordan Mason at running back, who I think can give them something more as like a power-based runner. He was really good on gap runs for the Niners last year. And even Ty Felton in the 3rd round. At the time, I was like, oh, that's kind of a weird pick, but I mentioned all those really good stats for Darnold as a downfield passer. It felt like at times like, man, they could use a couple more like layups, and I think Ty Felton, his best stuff as a separator is underneath and what he does with the ball in his hands. So I think like that, again, just kind of in contrast, nothing that like, oh man, I think Ty Felton, like he's not going to have 1,000 yards or anything. And Jordan Mason might be in a timeshare, but like these are just the little tiny things that you do to consistently invest in your offense to make it better in the fringes.
Great point. Because like you said, if Darnold, you're not going to reach those Darnold highs in some of the areas, but you make everything else better. The offensive line's automatically better, which will make the run game better, which will make some of those negatives that happened last year a little bit better. So that's a great point. All right, getting to the final first round quarterback selection from last year's draft. The guy that started the entire season, had some real lows to start the year, really battled back the second half of the year in Sean Payton's system. That is Bo Nix, Denver Broncos quarterback. I don't think I've ever talked about him on this show, so I think this is the first time we're ever going to have a discussion about Bo Nix and the Broncos. No, but Charles, I'll start with you. Bo Nix, Broncos, 2025. How do you feel about Bo Nix right now as a starting quarterback?
He's fine. I think for what his role in the offense eventually became, I thought, it was better than the start of the season by the end, because at the start, I wasn't sure he was going to make it to the end of the season.
I didn't either.
When they're coming out against Seattle and throwing for like 3 yards an attempt, and there were a few games like that. It looked a little shaky, but I think they found a role for him to be productive within the offense by the end of the season. Keep him on the move, a lot of screens. Like the one game that comes to mind, sadly, is the game they played against the Falcons, where they just kind of peppered them to death on screens, and no one could tackle. By the end of we got 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. And that's that. I think the best part of Bo's game is probably like, I guess when they're on scripts. I'm trying not to make him sound like a little guppy man, guppy quarterback that can't do much on his own. But it did kind of seem like towards the end of the season, Sean Payton realized, we got to reel us in a little bit, because when he was just trying to do the standard quarterback stuff, it didn't go well. But when they pulled it in and like, all right, screens and play action, so more your game, they got a little more productive. So I don't know what that says about Bo really himself, but I like the surrounding pieces they have for him. Like anytime you have Sean Payton, I thought he showed that he still's got the juice last year as far as being an NFL play caller. You're going to probably be able to be pretty productive. But I think Bo needs to get better at just, I guess, throwing down the field and be a little bit more accurate when it's not going to be dressed up and clean for you. And that's something that I still think has a long ways to go for his game.
Yeah. I think that's too. I think that's what Sean Payton, that coaching staff, that's such a good job, where they're like, okay, we tried to maybe give you now a full Cheesecake Factory menu, but but like maybe we'll limit us down to like a fast food menu, maybe In-N-Out level, just keep it nice and simple, just like 8 items on here, and we'll just go from there, nice and cheap and everything. So I think that was good coaching, but also understanding what your players are and everything. Matt, what about you? I was thinking about the 27-year-old rookie receiver that the Broncos had last year, but what about with Bo Nix though? How do you feel about him? Optimism with him, or just what you see, what you maybe want to see out of him this year?
Yeah, I think what I want to see from him is maybe like a little bit more consistency and kind of like in the I don't want to say like intermediate area of the field, because he's an interesting player when you look at him. Like, and we've talked about this a lot, the screen game is really good in this offense, and I think he was really good about like getting the ball out and just not effing it up on those screen plays, which is it's kind of like the bare minimum. By the way, like before I get into this sort of the minutia of it, I'll just say like the kind of state of the state, the state of the union for Bo Nix. Like, I think he verifiably clears the bar of like, all right, this guy can be our starting quarterback, and like we can go to work with this guy. Like, I'm not concerned about him like being he's sneaky bad, or like he's a bust or anything. Like, no, that's nonsense. I think he verifiably clears the bar to like that quarterback wilderness thing. Like, if they don't have anybody that kind of qualifies here, or I guess Sutton kind of has at times in his career. Like, I think he's out of the quarterback wilderness with Bo Nix. That's good enough. So with that being said, like, I think when you kind of parse some of the stats out with him, like, this is the best way to describe Bo Nix is, again, on 10+ air yard throws, like, he's 17th in adjusted yards per attempt, but he's 27th in success rate, which that's not the worst thing in the world, but I think it kind of speaks to who he is. Like, he's a little bit boom bust. Again, that's not the worst thing in the world. Like, Jordan Love is kind of the same way, where the success rate is low, but like he's 9th in adjusted yards per attempt. So, I mean, it's a little bit obviously a better version of that, but same thing with Jordan Love, where I'd like to see him even out a little bit as a player. And I think with Bo Nix, that's what, in his second season, surrounded by much better players now. I mean, they've added some of the additions there. I kind of really like, the more I've thought about Pat Bryant in this offense, the more I think it makes sense. You have an Ingram addition as a move around guy, RJ Harvey as a running back. Like, they got a little more juice there than they did. Even Marvin Mims, like at times last season, was really fun for them. So like, I think they've got enough guys to do like what Sean Payton wants to do, and I think Bo Nix can be good enough to do that as well. So I'm pretty comfortable with him going into second season.
Yeah, the one good thing with him that carried over from college is he doesn't take sacks. He get in. That's part of his play style. He's willing to check that ball down very quickly. It's going to be a touchdown to check down kind of operating system, which works with a Sean Payton offense. But man, he's a really good athlete. I mean, really, really good athlete, and I think he's a good scrambler as well. But he had a 4.1% sack rate last year, which ranked 4th among all quarterbacks. It's the second best sack rate among 28 qualifying rookie quarterbacks since 2012. So it is something up there. That's something, again, to hang your hat on. Had a 13.4 pressure to sack rate. The Broncos offensive line is great. And the offensive line system, or in the system that they have, and the coaching and what they call scheme wise, helps it out a lot too, and helps Nix out a lot too. A lot of extra tight ends in there, running backs in there to hang in protection. You get extra bodies in there. But that's how he was in college too, because one of my things evaluating him was like, oh yeah, he's got a really good arm. He just doesn't always use it, because he was throwing so much checkdowns and screens and everything. And this year we got to see the arm unleashed. And it could be all over the place. Sometimes it was great. Sometimes you have the Browns game, the third down, where he hits the guy down the pipe, or the Bills, the opening drive against the Bills in the playoffs. Again, what you were talking about, though, Charles, scripted plays and everything, good. He has a good understanding. And that's going to kind of lead to my negative with him, or really what I want to see. A lot of screens. We already mentioned that. Sean Payton's always going to call a lot of screens. So that's the thing, is like that's never going to really go away. That's part of the offense, and especially with the running back they took in the first or in the second round, there's going to be even more screens. But the thing that I noticed the most was how many throws happen outside the pocket, and not just bootlegs or play action, but on third down and second and longs, which are considered passing downs. They would do what I call extended sprint outs, blocked big sprint outs, which is 3-man routes. He catches the ball, then he leaves the pocket, and then they seal the edge, and really essentially turns the reads into a bootleg read. You got a high, you got an over route, and you got an under route. And they would do that a lot on third down. And I've seen offenses do that and coaches do that as a changeup. Hey, we're playing a heavy blitzing team. This is just a way to make it easier on everybody. They would do it like every game. And it would just be like every 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9. Okay, there's another extended sprint out. 25% of his throws were from outside the pocket last year, which led the NFL. I want to see that number come down. I wanted to see his straight drop back. I have to read 1, 2, 3, 4. He's shown a couple times he can do it, but they do not. That was not their strength of their game. That was not their fastball of their offense. So I just want to see that, the true drop back, the true dissecting the defense, truly finding the correct read consistently. When it was scripted plays, that first third down of the game, great. But in the middle of the second quarter, second half of the games, it becomes so scattershot that, I watched that Chargers game from the last month of the season. I could count on one hand how many true dropbacks there were. And I would say maybe 3 fingers how many true dropbacks there were. Screen, play action, heavy shot play, extended sprint outs, da-da-da-da. So those launch throws are good. He can throw on the move. I just want to see a little bit more of the traditional dropback stuff. He finished 19th in dropback success rate last year, which is solid. 17th among rookies since 2012. So right in the middle of the pack. The quarterbacks around him were Mariota, Wentz, Minshew, and Darnold. Burrow was a little bit higher than that, but kind of, same little area. Running backs weren't great. They had 1.5 pass catchers. I'll count Mims as one as a pass catcher. Should improve this year. But I do think the athleticism and understanding what Peyton wants on some of these plays is going to give him a nice baseline. I think that he can keep you in some games, but I do want to see more of that real quarterback stuff. I'm going to be pretty optimistic about it because Sean Payton's not going anywhere and the offensive line's not going anywhere. So again, I'm going to say it's a 7 here. I want to see a little more of the traditional dropback stuff. But Charles, what about you?
I'll go 6 or 7.
Matt?
Yep, 7 for me too. I do think, to your point, he could be one of these guys that, 4 years from now, we're having these little debates about, but what does he look like outside of Sean Payton's? Well, guess what?
Right.
Unless Sean Payton decides he wants to retire again, you retire again. Something about New Orleans, people just retire and then they eventually come back. He wants to do that again. He's not going to go anywhere. He's going to only ever probably play for Sean Payton as long as things go well there. So I think a 7 is fine with me.
All right, we are going to take our last break and we'll come back with our Olympic, Dream 5. First 5 guys we'd start the team with. We'll go with that. See you guys in a sec. All right, we are back. NFL owners this week passed a resolution 32-0. 32-0. Not even the Raiders abstained from this vote, which that used to be kind of their shtick. On Tuesday at the Spring League meetings, actually in Minneapolis, that they'll allow NFL players to try out and participate in the flag football competition during the 2028 Summer Olympics in LA. Should be fun. I'm actually kind of surprised that they did it, but it did seem like there was a lot of swell happening for this. So I'm actually not as surprised as maybe if you asked me a year ago. The rules are it's 10 player team limits, 5-on-5. A maximum of one player from each NFL team will be allowed to participate, and each club's designated international player is also permitted to take part for their country. We're going to give 5 players. I know we said 10. I know it's 5-on-5, offense, defense, yada, yada. We're just going to give 5 picks that we'll start our dream teams with. Who we think that we would start definitively this team in 2028, the football dream team. We got to get a better name than dream team, though. We got to get our own little thing. So we got time to marinate on that. Matt, I'll start with you because I know you've been working long and hard on this list.
Yep. I was popping on the tape, like just trying to imagine there's no tackling and just, flag called around to sources. I've been doing a lot of work on this. Number one, I'll just go 1 to 5. Number 1, I had Bijan Robinson. Number 2, I had Malik Neighbors. Number 3, I had Jahmyr Gibbs. Number 4, I had Garrett Wilson, and number 5, I wanted to go Bucky Irving, but I thought that was too chalk, so I want to go with one hipster pick, and I actually just talked about him. I'll go Marvin Mims here, who's one of the best kick returners in the league.
Speed.
Pure speed. He's one of the best kick returners in the league. Pure speed.
Pure speed. That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah, and it was like, hey, you know what? Marvin Mims couldn't run routes as a rookie, but they made him work when they just flared him out of the backfield. So again, yeah, I mean, a lot of guys, obviously 2 great running backs. I also kind of wanted to go young. Like, I don't know if this was galaxy braining, but I was like, this is the 2028 Olympics. Like, hey, these guys can't be about to retire, So we need them ready to go in a few seasons here. But yeah, I mean, all good after catch receivers too, and then again like a fake receiver in Marvin Mims.
No, I like that. Run back, second catch. Yeah, a lot of guys then space are going to make 3 guys miss. So I understand the line of thinking here. You went pure speed.
Pure speed.
I love that. That's so awesome. Charles, what about you?
I went with Lamar Jackson. Well, I don't know if this is 1 to 5. This is just my 5. I got Lamar Jackson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Justin Jefferson, Brian Thomas Jr., and Jameson Williams. So I did go
somewhere line thinking.
Okay. I want to say I was influenced by watching our friends Steven Ruiz and Seth Galina argue about this for about the past 24 hours about what a good flag football team would be.
Really?
And we have I don't want to say we. They came up with the idea.
We were not part of it. We were just observers.
Just around it. Yes.
Yeah.
They came up with the idea of speed. I think it makes a whole lot of sense, but I can't let go of the idea that I want a joystick. Okay, we're got NFL players going against guys from from France or Spain. Come on, let's get Jahmyr Gibbs in the open space and make someone look absolutely stupid.
Exactly.
I already know we can run past everyone. These are NFL players, but wouldn't it be funny to see Lamar Jackson, Jahmyr Gibbs run a little option stuff in the open field and nobody can touch them? Right. Yeah, if they get anything less than gold when this happens in 4 years, kick them out the country. Send them.
I was
to
gonna
Canada.
say we might need to expand the entire country. I think.
No, it should be mercy rule every game if we do this right. Yeah, Seth brought up a great point because he's been around flag. I think a little bit was that it's such a narrow field that it's verticality becomes as much of a strength as just horizontal speed, which I was like, oh shoot, that's not, because my original team would have been similar to what Matt had.
4 Dante Halls.
All right, sort by phone booth guys. All right, here we go. We got all this. Yeah, basically. So I think definitive number 1. I'm seeing if this guy can join my team, and going from there is Lamar Jackson, because it's just as a quarterback, they can't scramble. Yeah. Stupid. That's where I go, obviously. But they have to make the first guy, they have to make that pass rusher miss, automatically to me, quarterback already limits. It's Lamar, Kyler Murray, Jayden Daniels, Josh Allen, I guess a little bit, but I'm thinking as shifty as possible that I want back there. And then I went Patrick Surtain the second. I want big corners that can possibly moonlight as a receiver if you need it.
Oh my God. You're never throwing. I mean, they're never throwing a pass at him.
Ever. It's going to be great. Justin Jefferson, I don't think I need to speak. And Justin Jefferson seems really enthusiastic about this. So also I just feel like he's a lock. I went to AJ Brown because he has the size. He has some explosion after the catch. He's not going to break anyone off, but I mean.
No, he will. Yeah, he will. He's playing against some guy.
He's going to forearm shiver a guy as they try going for the flag. God, he's going to mow them down. All right.
It's a health risk.
AJ Brown is a health risk. I mean, Mike Evans would be a health risk. Are you kidding? These guys. I know. And think of any of the fast tight ends. And then my hipster pick here, defense, because honestly, this is what Steven talked about too. He had Kyle Hamilton as his like pass rusher, and that actually kind of inspired me. Where I was like, oh yeah, the best pass rusher is like a good blitzing DB. So I went Trent McDuffie as my fifth guy, just as a pass rusher, because I just think he's really good at it, and the other opposing team's quarterback's gonna be really quick, so don't have to worry about size. He just has to stay in the box on it, and you can do some coverage ability as well. I almost went Jalen Ramsey, but that brings up the age stuff, too. Yeah. We're talking about 2028. He's gonna be 33 then, so but size and everything. So that was my 5. That's fun. That was fun. Better than what I expected. I like the differences that we had. I actually was very surprised. I thought we'd have some chalk throughout all the teams, but thank you guys for joining me. We're closing it out today. We'll be back next Wednesday after Memorial Day. I am Nate Tice. You can find me at Nate Tice on Blue Sky, Nate_Tice at Twitter. That's Charles McDonald. You can find him at 4Verts, and that's Matt Harmon. You can find him at either Matt Harmon or Matt Harmon_BYB. Mailbag questions. We will get to those. Send those questions to football301mailbag at yahoosports.com or leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us, follow us, rate us, watch us on YouTube on the Yahoo Sports YouTube channel. Thank you to everyone behind the scenes. Thank you to everyone for listening. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. See you guys next time.